transition between becoming a man or staying a boy doesn't happen with another birthday. All right, when you get another birthday, you become, you get older, you start to get a beard, and your voice starts to change and all of that, and people start to tell you, oh, you're becoming a man. That's just biology. It will happen whether you sleep, whether you're awake, whether you get a job, whether you do drugs, it will happen either way. So you can't, biology should not be the only reference point from which we decide that. The Jews had something they called bar mitzvah, or bat mitzvah, which meant that a child, when he got to 13 years old, and for the girls sometimes 12, they had a similar, they would give them what is called a rite of passage. A wedding is a rite of passage. When you write C exam and you go to another exam, and you go to another level, secondary school, rites of passage. So there are these normal areas where things happen. So I want to look at how we manage, a couple of things how we manage becoming a man. Now, there is no age requirement for becoming a man. And by that I mean, if something happens to in your family, and the person who is the breadwinner dies, the boy actually becomes a man. Because you have to take care of your own stuff, you have to manage stuff, and so the responsibility factor is one of the basic things that helps us to transit from boyhood to manhood. So today I want to look at 13 things that will help us to transit from being a boy to a man. Like we said just a while ago, there's no age requirement. The difference between those two titles first is a difference in behavior. So to become a man, you have to behave like a man. So you can't let small things worry you. You know, Trinidadians have this thing, don't worry that small thing. So you have to think, it starts with your thought patterns. So number one, you need to understand that you are a part of a bigger plan. To become a man, you need to understand that you're a part of a bigger plan. You can't, I was reading something the other day, men play the whole game. Boys play for 5 minutes. Men play the whole game. Boys play for 5 minutes. The analogy that is used for this is LeBron James and basketball. Almost every game LeBron James plays, he plays for more than 40 minutes. How long is a basketball game? 48, right? But he plays every game for more than 40 minutes every night. Now to do that, he has to prepare himself. Now this is one of the challenges. For you to become a man, when you walk up the aisle with a wife or you walk on your job, it just doesn't happen right away. Things have been happening before. Your thoughts change. You start to plan in a different way. Number two, the first order of business for a man is to feed his family. You know what the Bible says about a man? If you know what? You have to feed your family. So you gotta provide and feed your family. And sometimes we think that feeding your family only deals with providing food and money and stuff. But you have to also give your family what we call some sort of emotional foundation. There are a whole lot of us who can work hard, but we can't manage emotional things. We can't manage how to deal with loss, pain, anger, how to treat a woman when she doesn't do what you expect her to do. How to not beat a woman and talk. That's a sort of emotional platform. So you must provide all of that. I always remember that my father used to give me money to give my mother because he wanted me to give my wife money when I got older. So there are all those kinds of platforms, right, that we talk about. Number 3. The pants doesn't make you a man. A man makes the pants. Alright? A pants don't make you a man. And somebody will tell you that women wear pants too. So pants doesn't make you a man. But a man makes the pants. So in other words, style is important. Don't get me wrong, but don't keep your appearance. You keep your appearance tidy. There's no position you can attain solely by wearing a designer pants or just wearing a pants. Boys are impressed by what they wear. Men make impressions regardless of what they wear. Boys are impressed by what they wear. You know when you're going up, when school starts the first day, and everybody comes with the new sneakers, and goes, what are you wearing? Put your foot. Anybody checking your foot? That's what boys do. You ever see a whole set of men going to work in a factory doing this? Nope. They passed that stage. So you don't really check for that anymore. You don't need to look, you don't need to make an impression. You know, you make impressions when you don't have responsibilities. And once you have responsibilities, you don't look for impressions anymore. Alright? You have to decide that you have to manage and you have to be in charge. Number 4. The rain always stops eventually. The rain. Now, anybody remembers yesterday it started to fall, rain started to fall in the morning? And everybody thought it would have been another rainy day. And then suddenly by 1, 2 o'clock, sun was hot, 34 degrees. And you wonder where it came from. The rain always stops eventually. Now, I also recognize something. We were at Chicago Airport in Chicago O'Hare Airport, and we were flying to Florida. And there was a storm between Florida and Chicago. And the pilot said, don't worry, once we get above the clouds, there is no storm. So I said, really? And then it dawned upon me, in my mind, that we have to have that mindset that will take us above where the storms are, above the clouds. So in other words, we took off from Chicago and we climbed to about 37,000 feet. And we looked down at the clouds and we saw all the gray clouds. But suddenly I recognized that the sun was shining above the clouds. Now, what's the lesson in this? The point in this is that the same sun that shines above the clouds, when the clouds move. So in other words, what they're really saying, when the rain will stop, when the rain stops, the clouds move. And when the clouds move, the sun comes out. So you might be going through some dark period. The rain might be falling in your life. And when the rain stops, the sun comes out. But I've always remembered another illustration. If the rain doesn't fall, the flowers don't grow. If we don't get rain, we don't get food. We don't get water. So there must be a balance in the system of the world, in how it operates, so we can get stuff and we get by. Number 5, all things in moderation. And that should be a Christian principle. We talk about temperance all the time. All things in moderation. Play, stop. In other words, if we can come to the retreat from Friday, and maybe some of us wish that the retreat will continue, right? Because we like the view. But guess what? Work tomorrow. So the retreat is there, and then moderation, and then you have to go back to do something because you have a responsibility. So all these things fall into place. The next one is number 6. For anybody who's writing, the health triangle is still very much in play. And so you must manage your health. You must manage your spiritual health, you must manage your mental health, and you must manage your physical health. A man needs to manage that. So even though you might like punches and like all of that, if you drink punches all the time, you live on your throne. If you drink punches all the time, you live on your throne. So at some point in time, you have to have some kale, you have to have some green stuff. I've discovered that men should not eat too much fatty stuff. Yes. For your longevity, for your health, for everything. Too much of fatty stuff is not good for you, which follows fried stuff. The other thing is, you need to manage your emotional health and your intellectual health. You need to decide what comes into your mind and what goes out. So you need to decide how you'll feed your mind on. They said that two gentlemen were walking on the road one day, and when they walked, the other one said, "But here, I think my shoes have a hole." And the other one said, "No, I'm back on my feet again." Let me repeat it. 2 men were walking, and one said, "My shoes has a hole." And the other one says, "Oh no, I'm back on my feet again." So how you look at your circumstance determines how you're going to react. So in other words, you must decide how you take it. I've had people tell me that when they lost their jobs, life became so much better because they transited to another better position. In other words, if you had stayed at that job, you'd have never had the necessity to transit. I have a friend who lost a job in a particular place, and now he runs his own company. So he went back to the gentleman and said, "Thank you for firing me." And let me give you this illustration. Frank Sinatra was told that the voice that he has was too crass, and nobody liked it. So they would not hire him to sing. But one day, somebody from Motown Records, which is Universal now, which used to be Universal, picked him up and he started to sing. And guess what? He was able to come back to some of those same clubs to sing for them, to save them from bankruptcy. And Frank Sinatra coined this phrase. He says, "The best revenge is abundant success." The best revenge, abundant success. The next one, when people talk, listen completely. Most people never listen. When people talk, listen. Now you may be surprised. You may get some ideas from where you don't expect it to come from. Some big ideas may come from some very simple places. Example, when I worked on this course, when I knew Leon in Maraval, we were trying to tie a tank that was falling down into the sea from Las Cuevas Church, falling into the sea. And we had nothing to tie it on with a come along to pull it. So there were 4 big men trying to decide where we tying this thing on to pull it. And a little boy came by and he said, "What are you all doing?" He said, "Trying to pull it." He said, "Put it in the coconut tree." Later, and gone. And 4 big men couldn't see that. But this young fella come, he said, "Tie it in the coconut tree." So we tied it in the coconut tree, and we pull, and then we put the forms in, and we cast the tank. And the tank was okay. All because a little boy looked at 4 big men who didn't know what they were doing, and very jokingly passing, "What are you all trying to do?" "Tie it in the coconut tree." "All right, later." Gone. we were spending like an hour trying to figure it out. He came in 2 minutes, figured it out. So you gotta recognize that some people are there, and they say people are being paid money to solve the problem. You get plenty of money to solve a problem. You don't get money just because you're qualified, but your qualification must help you to solve a problem. So one of the challenges I think most of us as men have, we don't like to listen to people because we think we know. And it gets into our egos, and it might save you. So it saves you a whole lot. The next one is a closed mouth never gets invited to the feast. A closed mouth never gets invited to the feast. So in other words, if you keep your mouth closed, you will never eat. So in other words, at some point in time, most of us men don't like to talk too much. We keep everything inside. So if you don't open your mouth and say you're hungry, you'll never get any soup. So if you just walk around and, you okay? Yeah. Everything good? Yeah.
Nothing.
And then when you can't bear it, boy, I was really hungry yesterday. But why you didn't say something? Late. On top of that, one of our problems is emotional expression. We don't really express, us men don't express feelings too much. We don't share with people what we want to know. We think it's almost self-explanatory. Guess what? Unless you tell somebody what's in your mind, they will not know. Because God didn't give any of us the ability to read people's minds. So unless you talk, unless you articulate what you want to do. So in other words, you may have a plan. If you don't tell somebody, nobody helps you with the plan. You gotta share. And I invite and I will express to all of us, when you guys have a wife, share with your wife what your plan is. And let me tell you why. Nothing ever affects one person. If your plan fails, your family fails. So if the plan works, the family succeeds. So you can't just figure that you'll just do this, and no, you gotta get by, you gotta do everything. Don't let a broken heart change who you are. Don't let a broken heart change who you are. In other words, let me put it in Trinidad language. Don't let tobacco change you. Don't let tobacco don't make you want to get married. Don't make tobacco make you think that all women bad. Alright. If not tobacco. Anyway, let's go. In other words then, I think one of the, on a serious note, you can be very close to success and you stop because of a broken heart. You're almost there, but because you're broken, and we have to be careful too, that sometimes the world and people, they know that when we are broken, we stop. People know that. You want a man to stop breaking. You want a man don't want to feel to go on just breaking. You want boys to stop playing, just take away the toys, and they stop playing. A man is not supposed to be moved like that. A man is supposed to look around and see whatever necessarily needs. And if you don't find it, you should create it. You should create it. So in other words, if you're looking for a spot, and I'll tell you what, I came here this morning, and this spot could have been just empty if nobody decided to create it. And you would not have been standing here with this perfect view of the bay if somebody didn't decide to create it. Maybe somebody might have said to the owner, hey, this won't work. What you building it on? And then when it worked, it happened. Science says that the bumblebee shouldn't fly. Right? Because all the other insects and everything, they have longer bodies, they have a certain aerodynamic way they are made and created. But guess what? The bumblebee doesn't know that he's not supposed to fly. So he flies. He doesn't know that. So you have to behave as if you don't know what people are saying. So there comes a time when you just got to stop listening. Love people and use things and not other ways around. In other words, there's not only one way you can do something. If one way stops, look for something else. Look for another way. Ben Carson always used to say that if they take away everything he has, he'll find another way to get it. If you take away everything I have, I'll find another way to get it. So in other words then, we must have this kind of mentality that if one thing doesn't work, we look for something else until we get through to what we want to do. So we can't just stop, just give up. Somebody just, so in other words, that's why I said earlier, real men don't play for 5 minutes. They play the whole game. This one is hard for most of us as men. Say sorry first. Say sorry first. Men will stammer before they say sorry. Men will do all kinds of stuff. I remember in my own life, my daughter, I didn't do her anything, but I should have said sorry. And she was very young, and so I'm trying to say sorry. Until she had to say to me, Daddy, you're trying to say sorry? I was saying all kinds of other stuff. And then she said, okay, repeat after me. I am, she said, I know it's hard. Put your tongue between your teeth. And so we went through it, and I said sorry. But it was a joke for me to see that a little child was recognizing I had issues in trying to say sorry. Understand that being a man has very little to do with masculinity. Remember we talked about that earlier? Being a man has very little to do with being masculine. So you may look like a man, but you might not behave like a man. You have to behave like a man. You have to show the maturity of a man. You have to manage like a man. You have to act like a man. When you're going down the road and somebody passes and touches your wife or your woman, don't just say, no, I'm serious. No, but I'm just illustrating. Because one of the things God gave us as men is a kind of instinct to protect. Somebody can pass and bounce you and it's a small thing. But don't bounce my lady. And I always say, do me what you want, but leave my family alone. Don't trouble them. Don't trouble my daughter. One of the reasons why I didn't come last night is because my kids had a social, after camp social, and so I figured if I come here last night, I wasn't sure how they were getting home and putting their stuff home. But when that was done, it was Minister 2. And I went to sleep to get up at maybe 5:30. I got up at 6:15. And I was able to get out because I left home without taking breakfast because I was promised breakfast. And that brings me to another point. Real men must keep their word in spite of pressures around. So in other words, if you plan to do something, keep your word. It might affect you, it might cost you a little more, but you made a promise. People must know you that you're somebody who keeps your word. And the last one is similar, but it means that you must see things through. If you start something, finish it. Don't start stuff and leave it. And then if you start something, see it through. Make sure it's done. I went to a friend of mine's house, and his wife was able to show me, look, he started filling the cupboards. So we leave it. He was fixing this tile in this bathroom, so there are about 6 unfinished projects in the house. And so eventually she had to pay somebody to come and finish the project. So it ended up that the bathroom, all the tiles are not alike. The money that was spent on the kitchen cupboard, they had to break it down and do it over because couldn't get some of the material again. But by the way, he was able to give me a legitimate excuse why everything wasn't finished. And so his wife said to me, he never finishes anything. And she said he's known for not finishing anything. And he looked at me and he said, no, that's not what it is. It's that sometimes when I'm doing this, something important comes up. And he leaves it. That's how he sees it. So he doesn't feel any way funny. He doesn't see anything wrong with it because something important comes up. So we got to be very careful, you know. Let's go now. One of the challenges, and we want to talk about very briefly, staying focused. For men and people, we got to stay focused. And this last point introduces the next one, staying focused. I think one of the biggest challenges in the world today is for people to stay focused. Stay focused. One of the first things you need to do, there's only 5 of them, is to set up a plan for the day the night before. Don't just get up and hope that the day will just fall into it. You have to plan for tomorrow from tonight. You were supposed to plan what you will eat. If you all didn't plan to make punch up here, you couldn't get, come up here, okay, we're making punch. Where the stuff? You know, we can bring that. How are you making the punch? You have to plan for that from before. Now, one of the most richest men in the world, Warren Buffett, says that if you want to make it in life, if you want to get rich next 5 years, you must start thinking about that 5 years before. And start to make decisions from 5 years before to get rich 5 years after. And this is what he says. He says if you want to become rich, save 10% of your what you want to earn. He said if you want to become poor or be in poverty, spend 10% more. So if you're working for $100, spend 110, and in 5 years you become poor. If you want to become rich, spend 90 and save 10. He said his father taught him that when he was 15 years old. His father took him on the stock market and gave him 25 cents and told him to buy a stock. And then from the stock, he bought a property for $1,000. And that was the first of, well, you know, he owns more money than maybe Trinidad's economy. And look where he is now. He said because if you spend it, you would never have it. He said, but if you keep it, you can spend it. Let me repeat that. If you spend it, you never have it. But if you keep it, you can spend it. All right? Number 2, do the most difficult things first. For those of us who do exams, we go and do exam, you do the most difficult problems, and then the easy ones, you don't fight up with them because they're easy. But if you try up with the easy ones and you don't do the difficult ones, most likely time runs out on you. And you don't get, because you can rush the easy ones, but you can't rush the difficult ones. And there are things like that in life that you can't rush. For me as a pastor and as somebody who teaches and presents, you have to prepare what you want to do. If you don't prepare it, you can't do it. And so I spent a whole lot of time trying to put this stuff together. Because, and just to last for an hour, for us to preach for an hour, it might cost us about 2 days to put the sermon together. So when you see your pastor get up and preach for 1 hour, and you say, hey, yeah, good stuff, he's been spending 2 days trying to put that together. So in other words, for me it's a little different in some cases. I grew up in a country where the light went, or electricity went very often. So we could not depend on paper. You know, we could use a tablet because you have your own light. But in the middle of a sermon, the light will go. So if you didn't know it, so it forced us to develop a memory. So I try to remember my sermons like in point form, so that I can be able to preach it without that. Number 3, eliminate distractions and waste and time wasters. Eliminate distraction and time wasters. My friend I just spoke about could not eliminate distractions and time wasters. So he didn't finish anything. Now you must decide what's important and just push aside what's important. So things that will waste your time, just don't do it. Example, there are certain things I just don't worry about. I pack my passport, if I'm traveling, I pack my passport and on the clothes and vitamins and medication first. Anything else, I could forget it. If you don't have your passport, you can't travel. Right? And I've seen people with big bags. They remember everything. When they reach to the airport, no passport. Miss the flight, miss everything. So you gotta decide what's important, right? Number 4, regenerate and keep up your energy. Regenerate, keep your energy. So some punch is good. Keep your energy going, right? Ready, have a time? Some soup. Because you never know when you'll need it. One of the funny things about life is that if opportunity comes and you're not ready, you've lost out. So if you don't equip yourself, for example, a job comes and you have an opportunity to learn what the job requires, and the job shows up. You can't tell them, let me go to school and come back and wait. No, it doesn't wait for you. You have to be ready for it. And so you have to make yourself always equipped. And the Bible talks about that with the women, the virgins. They didn't equip themselves. Some carried oil and some didn't carry. If you drive your car and eat all the time, it's not enough. It's empty. You have to equip yourself for a long run. So before you go on a long run, you're full up. Don't expect that, oh, you can make it, man. Number 5, constantly remind yourself of your ultimate goals. Let me see the hands of anybody here who set goals for their life. You know, if you don't set goals for your life, you know nothing to work with. Goals even affect how you spend money. If somebody gives you $10,000 and you don't have a budget and goals, you go into town and buy one phone and that's it. Money done. Somebody else will go buy a blue phone. Might not be the best phone, but it's a phone. Put up 2,000, buy some food with 1,000, and travel with the rest. And one man can come back. The man who bought a $10,000 phone by lunchtime is hungry still. Still looking for you. So you have to manage how you spend money. So we want to transit now from how to balance distraction to how a man can boost self-confidence. Self-confidence and self-image. And so I want to look at just possibly 5 ways to do that. Your self-image is a mental picture of yourself. Self-image is how you see yourself. Don't be too worried about how people see you, but how you see yourself. How you see yourself will ultimately affect your thought. How you see yourself will affect how you think of the stuff you can do. Before anybody ran a mile, there's a gentleman by the name of Gregory Bannister. Gregory Bannister ran the first mile. And when they asked Gregory Bannister, how did you make it through the mile? He said, I went to the tape and memorized the color of the tape. Right? And he said as he ran, he was looking for the tape. And he did not stop until he saw the tape. Think about it. If your goal is to get to Port of Spain, don't stop until you see Port of Spain. But if you have no goal, you might stop by the bay, never get to Port of Spain. So in other words, if you don't know where your goal is, you have nothing to aim for. Now guess what? Since Gregory Bannister ran a mile is nothing now. Everybody runs a mile. What is the reason? Sneakers change? No. People's mindset. Everybody sees themselves able to do it, so they can do it. Number two, you need to think positive. Think positive. You know, there are always people who tell you it can't happen. You can't do that. And in my mind, I always like people to tell me I can't, because it gives me a little more impetus to try to do it. I remember when I used to play a whole lot of tennis, and don't lie. I used to play a lot of tennis. I remember I damaged my wrist. And so instead of trying to play a backhand the conventional way, I developed a paddled shot. But when I hit it, it stayed hit. And nobody couldn't get it. He knows what I'm talking about. So in other words then, I could have decided that, you know, you see some people play tennis and they only use their forehand, can't play their backhand. And so I developed another way to play a backhand. That up to now, that's what I use. Now my hand got okay, but I developed another way. So you have to think that you can still do it. And if you don't think that way, you will never ever do it. I remember growing up with some young fellas, and there were some young ladies that I thought was outside of my league. You ever men, you think that some women too nice for you? And a gentleman said to me, a woman can either tell you yes or no. He said, nothing else can happen. He said, at least you'll approach you, either say yes or no. And so we made this kind of arrangement, and I went to a young lady, and she said yes, and I was surprised that she said yes. I thought it was out of my league, but she said yes. And so you must not restrict yourself by negativity. If you do that, you get yourself in trouble. So every time she'll say yes. I gotta pick up in today, I gotta pick up my friend. Now, changing behavior, number 3, is often easier than changing your thinking. Behavior will change, but you can't change your thinking. So in other words, okay, let me illustrate that so you can get it. If somebody says to you, let's go on the road, let's look for some mangoes. That's easy, right? But then you can get the mangoes and come back here and feel that I still feel sadness. The person helped you to get mangoes, but they couldn't change your thinking. So in other words, you must be able to manage how you think. If you don't manage how you think, You might do the right things, but you mightn't get the results that you want to get from it. Number 4. Now, breaking up big goals or tasks into small and more manageable chunks can help. So you may have a big task to do, but you just make it manageable. 1 step, 2 steps. And that's how we live. You can't walk to Port of Spain with 1 step. You have to make 1 step. But if you never start working, you'll never get there. So if you look at a big task and say, oh, too big for it, never make that big. But once you start doing it, you recognize that it becomes easier. When you look back at one time where you're from, so wait, can't even see where I started. All right, so you gotta think like that and be able to make it. Now, the last one to my mind is more important. For some people, the lack of confidence arises from having too little to do. And this is talking about laziness. If you want to achieve stuff, you can't be lazy. One of the things of a man, and one of the things that helps you with self-esteem, is that you have to do stuff to achieve stuff. If you do nothing, you achieve nothing. I remember somebody asking Brian Lara, how come he made so much runs? And he said, because I played 20 shots. He said, if I stood in the wicket and I just blocked all day, I can't make runs. And then he said something that was very important to me. He said, the very thing that helped me to make runs was my demise plenty times. He said, but luckily for me, I was bold enough and smart enough that I played smart shots. He said every shot was smarter than the first one. He said, but if I did not play the first shot, I would never have learned how to play a better shot. So he said there was a time when people told West Indian batsmen that they will never be able to handle pace. And he said he stopped looking for the ball, but he started looking for the man's hand. He said, don't look for the ball. He said, look for the man's hand. And he said you can adjust a couple of the last minute moves by shaping your hip and moving your foot and moving your elbow to play the shot. But you can't adjust if you don't see the man's hand. So, in other words then, if you don't play plenty shots, you will never make runs. And every shot you play helps you to play a better shot next time. So in other words, if when you play a shot you get a 4, that's an achievement that nobody can take away. So Brian Lara said when he got the first record, he said, yes, I could get a second, I could get a third, I could get a fourth. And so he started to bat like that. And so everybody asked him, what you do? He said he never went out there planning to do it. He just went out there planning to play shots. And to develop on every shot. So I'm just saying to you, as we close this session, if you sit in your house, nothing happens. You have to go out, work. I remember finally, when I was a student, we wanted money, and nobody didn't know how to get the money. And that was in the days of swipers. Remember the days of swipers? No weed whackers. Remember that, John? Swipers. Myself and another friend would walk up from the college into Valley View, looking for people's yard to cut. And we would leave fellas in their dorm sleeping. And when they come back and we get money, they beg us for money. If you stay at home, nothing happens. When I left Guyana, I used to line with some guys on the road. And they said, boy, you're going through that to smell hell, boy. You have no money? So I left, And I got my degree and I went back home. And I still met them lying there. Still lying. One man became a bald head rasta. When I left, he had hair all over his head. When I went back, no hair in front, but he still had the locks. So he had bald head in front and rasta at the back. So he was a bald head rasta. When I went by his house, his mother said to me, you know, he has a daughter, and he always asks his daughter for money. He doesn't work for his own. She said, you left him on the block, and he's still on the block. And so she said, he didn't ask you for money? I said, yes, he did. And that was the same man who said to me, you're going Trinidad to suffer. So I'm just saying to you, if you stay at home, nothing happens. The Lord still blesses those who are willing to work hard. If you're willing to work hard, you will get it. And so finally I'll quote this, give you Les Brown's quote. Les Brown says, if you want something so bad that you're willing to work for it, you're willing to fight for it, you're willing to lose the terror of the opposition for it, if you're willing to work hard for it, you will have it. Because if God says you will have it, no one can stop you from getting it. Gentlemen, God bless you. Young men, stay focused, and may God help you to continue your retreats. I always boast about Chase Village and the men's ministry. So God bless you guys and keep you fervent. Don't stop. Keep working.